Good morning, everyone. Grant Beggs here at Sotheby's International Realty in San Francisco. Thanks for joining me today. Super excited to have Adam Fonda with us from Sotheby's in Minneapolis. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Adam and I had a chance to meet up a few months ago, I guess, probably October, November?
Yeah, when it was a lot warmer.
A lot warmer. I went to Minneapolis. We were buying a place there, and I luckily got there in a 3-day stint where there was no snow, and it was pretty warm. It was a nice little between seasons, I guess.
Yep, it's -10 today. So
yeah, it is not, but it looks bright, looks nice and sunny.
Yeah, looks can be deceiving.
We're warmer here in San Francisco, but it's a gloomy. We're fully caught up in fog today. So yeah. you get what you can get. So this is another one of our series of talking to other Sotheby's and other realtor professionals around the country to understand what's happening in their market. Because what we've realized from our clients is that they may live here today, they may own a second home somewhere else, they may have kids buying somewhere else, and really enjoy this content of what's happening around the country. So we're just gonna have a discussion on what we're seeing in the greater Minneapolis area and what's happening. Sound good, Adam?
Yeah, sounds great.
Perfect. So to start off with, any funny recent real estate stories or anecdotes you want to share of kind of what's going on up there?
I fell on some ice the other day. That's it's just common workplace hazard here in Minnesota. So just walking on a sidewalk and just took a tumble. So
hopefully you weren't with clients at the time?
They left before me, so hopefully they didn't fall, but yeah, so.
Well, and it's funny because my daughter fell on the ice in San Francisco as well this week, ice skating. And so, there you go, indoor, outdoor.
Exactly.
So we're hearing across the country that inventory levels continue to be tight. We're hearing stories and we're starting to see interest rates starting to creep up. We're now coming towards the end of January when we would expect to see really the first wave of spring inventory start to hit. I know what's happening here in San Francisco, and I'm curious, what are you seeing in kind of the Minneapolis market now, and how does that feel versus, previous Januaries?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more people in hibernation mode right now, this January compared to previous Januaries. It's usually have a little more inventory. Inventory is down almost 30% here compared to last January. So that's definitely taken a little bit of a effect here. But interest rates are still low. People are still wanting to buy, but the problem is just the low inventory. We expect hopefully to come up a little bit more in February and March when things kind of warm up a little bit here.
Yeah,
that's kind of the trends.
Adam, are you seeing buyers? So if the listings are slower in terms of just coming to market and quantity, are you seeing the same kind of relative amount of buyers you would normally see this time of year who are active, knowing again it's the heart of winter?
I would say even more buyers. Still pent up demand from 6-12 months. There's still people I'm working with that have been patiently waiting for the right place.
Yep.
There's also just, they put an offer in and then all of a sudden there's 12 other offers.
Yep.
Even for places that maybe they aren't in love with, but they could see themselves doing some work on and make it their place to call home.
Is that something pretty common that you're having to find with your buyers and clients to say, in this market, finding the home you love maybe isn't the goal? It's finding the home that checks the boxes, that works for you, and you can over time get it as close to the house that you love, but just get into the market and get a house when you can.
Exactly. Yeah, they kind of see that there's not going to be any perfect house, as much as Zillow and some of these other advertisements say. It's just making the best out of what's available, and timing is everything. Especially as we see interest rates climb up this year, and they have been. So people want to take advantage of that. So they just want to move on with their life. They're just like, you know what, we can make it our house eventually, or maybe just this is a good spot for the next couple of years until things kind of balance out. So
So Minneapolis has sort of an interesting, and we'll leave St. Paul to the side for a second, but you have Minneapolis, and you have in-town neighborhoods. You have around Lake Harriet, Lake of the Isles, Lake Calhoun, sort of easy proximity to getting if you work downtown. And that was always an attractive part of that. Then as you go further out into the suburbs, you have, Edina, and you keep going all the way out, you have more and more suburbs. We're hearing around the country that a lot of people have moved from sort of more the urban center out to suburbs and other places. Have you seen that sort of migration? Does that continue in Minneapolis, where people are moving more to, is it the western suburbs? Is that how you describe it?
yeah, the western suburbs, Minneapolis, which is more, I would say, in demand for more of the higher end homes, luxury market, and around the Twin Cities. There was kind of a concern during George Floyd riots back a year and a half ago, that there was going to be this mass migration of people moving out of Minneapolis. And there was definitely an uptick of people selling, but it seems like for every one person that wanted to get out, there's always someone that wanted to get in. So it bounced out. The Minneapolis market is still strong. It's desirable, especially around Minneapolis lakes. You have Lake Harriet, Lake of the Isles, Lake Calhoun. It's very strong there. Even all the downtown markets in Minneapolis seem to be strong, little pockets. It seems really not to have taken a hit that much, as much as we thought it might. It's only improved. In Minneapolis Metro and whole is great, just because we have great parks, great schools, great healthcare facilities here, a great base of employers. We have some of the largest companies in the country: United Healthcare, Cargill, Target, Best Buy, 3M, US Bank, just name a few. So it's a, especially with strong employers, there's going to be strong housing. So which is always huge. So
my experience and I lived in Minneapolis in the 2004, 5, 6, 7 range, and absolutely loved living in areas. I feel like there really is a push to folks in their 20s to buy a house, right? There really is the desire for home ownership in ways that I haven't seen anywhere else I've lived. So I could see how the Loft District, the Warehouse District, where you have these great 1-bedrooms that are still in an approachable price point for first-time buyers, that would continue to keep that demand strong.
Yep, it is. A lot more people want to, especially in their millennials, their 20s, want to buy a condo, want to feel the pride of home ownership, especially since rental prices here in Minneapolis keep on climbing. There's huge demand for Class A rentals here. But in the same sense, some people feel like, why am I going to pay $3,000 a month in a rental when I can put that towards equity and building something? So there's a lot of people that do that here. And it's definitely in the last 2 years, they've bought pre-COVID, they've definitely made great investment. So
perfect. You mentioned Zillow earlier. I'm curious, we always talk about that here. How accurate are Zillow estimates? So when you have clients say to you, oh, I just saw this either on the listing side, oh, Zillow says my house is worth this, or oh, Zillow says it's worth, how accurate do you find those? And then how do you have that conversation with your client around how to actually price or what to actually offer?
Yeah, I tell people Zillow is great, user-friendly, and it's a great resource to kind of maybe get started and play around. But it's kind of, this estimate tool is kind of like WebMD. Yep. It's kind of like you go on there and it's like, well, do I have a mosquito bite or do I have Ebola? Like, I don't know. Like there's just so many different kinds of ways to gauge it. So I say, it's not as accurate as they say. But it's definitely, it's a nice resource to start kind of your housing, whether you're thinking about buying or selling. Yep. But the best place is, contact just a professional, give them a call. So that's one of the best things I say, especially with the market today. It changes every week. Yep. And especially with the estimate takes in so many factors, and a lot of it sometimes throws off. You could be off by hundreds of thousands, or you could be over by hundreds of thousands. So
yeah, we have that conversation, particularly on the listing side, a lot with our clients. Well, Zillow says it's worth X. And we'll say, okay, here are the comps we brought. Let's walk through them. And the other thing we've started to do a lot with our clients on the listing side is we go see everything else that's for sale, one or two places, a lot. There's not a lot. One or two other places that are for sale so they can see it the same way buyers do. So, okay, so your property is listed at 1.5 million. Let's go see the other one that's 1.4 and one that's 1.6. How do you think yours fits? Oh, they have a better view, but we have more parking or we have updated kitchen. So they're seeing it in that context, which we find is much more powerful than kind of simply an online tool.
Yeah, exactly.
So if someone was moving to Minneapolis and their budget, let's say $1 million for round numbers, what are the different neighborhoods, and they're looking for a single family home? What would be some of the neighborhoods that you would, that come to mind?
Definitely one of the strong contenders for anyone that has a family in that price point would be Edina. And that's just a community just alongside Minneapolis, kind of the Southwest Metro. It has great school district, great parks. It's convenient to get in downtown, but still a little bit in the West Metro. We're kind of close to everything. Other good areas to focus in with other good school districts and parks. Minnetonka School District, which is by Lake Minnetonka, and Orono and Wayzata. Those all kind of surround Lake Minnetonka, which is very desirable, especially during the summer. Yeah. Lake Minnetonka is about 15,000 acres of water.
Wow.
And yeah, so there's a lot of there's a lot to do. If you're boating, sailing, wakeboarding, it's exciting, it's fun. Even some of the bays during the weekends are super quiet because there's no wake, so you can take your kayak or paddleboard out there. So it's really fun.
How long would it take you to get from, say, Wayzata or Minnetonka if you worked, let's say, at Target? You worked in sort of downtown Minneapolis. How long?
Yeah, so downtown Wayzata to downtown Minneapolis Target headquarters, if you're moving right along, should take you about 15 minutes. So it's not too long at all.
Okay, it's good to dimensionalize, because a lot of times when you hear Westerns, you're thinking, is it an hour? Is it 45 minutes? Because I know at Edina, for example, 50th in France, you have great restaurants and stores, and you can be at Target headquarters in 10-15 minutes, again, depending on traffic and assuming no snow. So these are still within a really reasonable range from a commute point of view.
Yeah, sometimes with a little more traffic, 20 to 30 minutes, especially if it's really bad traffic or snow. But yeah, it's super convenient. And then if you go on the other side of the lake, sometimes it can take you a few, depending on what side of the lake you're on, sometimes it can take you 45 minutes. So the lake is that big. But there's the whole Lake Minnetonka area is, I would say, prime for luxury real estate in Minnesota. So if anyone wants to buy an $8 million house or more, that is the place to focus, because that's where they're at. It's going to be, you're going to get your money out of it once you resell. So it's always going to be a strong investment.
Which is interesting. So I think of sort of Lake of the Isles, right? So close to the city. There's I think it's the old Cream of Wheat family house that's sitting there on Lake of the Isles. I think it's around 11,000 square feet, but it's listed at somewhere around 2.5 million and been for sale forever. Now, if we had 11,000 square foot house overlooking water in San Francisco, it'd be 25 million. It would be sold tomorrow. So are we finding that really a lot of folks who want bigger square footage, bigger space have over the years migrated more to these Western suburbs because of some of the amenities and things that are there?
A little bit, but sometimes it's just not only the size, but just the function. Sometimes people don't like the large houses here in Minneapolis anymore. They just like more usable space. They don't want to have wasted space. So, form over function.
You got to heat it in the winter. You got to cool it in the summer.
Yeah. So, I would say too, there's some people that may buy a $5 million, $4 million house here, but sometimes their house down in Florida or Arizona is worth twice as much as that. So they're more conservative here in Minnesota too, when it comes to buying properties.
It's showing their wealth in a different way. It isn't about sort of, I'd call it the Beverly Hills effect, where it's how can I show everyone how big and grand a house I have. And I think of Edina that way. A lot of beautiful homes, but from the street, you can't tell how big the land is. You can't tell they back onto the golf course, and you can't tell really how big they are, right? It's a little bit more kind of reserved.
Exactly. And there's some people around, I would say the metro area that buy estate-like settings because they like that privacy. Maybe they don't want to be around like the Isles or Lake Minnetonka, be on the water and kind of show everything. They rather be kind of nestled on some acreage. So they kind of like that privacy more. So we've seen that more and more in the last couple of years too, where people buy these estates that are a little bit larger, where it's 10, 20, sometimes 50 acres, and they build their dream house, or it has a house on there, and they can remodel it. So
it's almost creating a family compound with, like you said, privacy and a chance to sort of get away while you're still within the realms of the city.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So some people just feel like Lake Minnetonka is great, but I don't want to be on there every day. I don't want to see the chaos. I don't want to have people fishing in front of my house.
Yep. Wakeboarding, I don't want to see the way, I don't want that. Yeah, no, I get it. And they may have, like you said, they may have a place in Florida that's on the intercoastal. So they get that when they're down there, and when they're up here, they want something else.
Yep, exactly.
Is there one listing right now that's out there that you're just in love with, that you sort of really excited about?
There was one, it just went pending. It was a beautiful estate that's on Lake Minnetonka, 7 acres, and it was all brick, totally remodeled, rebuilt, and just really cool. And it was an older house, still had some great character, but kind of, I would say, revised in today's kind of modern kind of living. So, and that actually, I'm pending. Sotheby is representing the buyer, which is great. So,
you know where it was listed roughly, where it was listed price wise?
Just under 10 million. So, yeah. So
it's funny because people assume when they hear those prices that it's only on the coasts, right? That it's in New York, it's Palm Beach, it's San Francisco, it's LA. But really, we're seeing $10 million houses sell really across the country.
Yeah, and we've had 2 last year above 10 million here in Minnesota, and we had that happen a couple years ago, and before that, it wasn't really until 2006 until we saw these big numbers above 10 million in Minnesota. So, and I feel like this year is going to be the same trend, where it's going to be just huge sales. So and a lot of them are kind of quietly off the market too, which some people like that here, more conservative Minnesota. So
so we find that here too, that sometimes depending on the nature of the seller, or just they don't want a million people traipsing through their house, security, COVID, a million different reasons. Do you find that you see that more and more, where people will say, sellers want to sell, they don't want to go through the whole open process. It's just, they don't want to expose their life and everything to it. Qualified buyers, let us know and we can arrange a private showing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm seeing that more and more. It seems to be kind of a trend, which is definitely, I understand where the sellers are coming from sometimes with that. But I always tell them too, if you want to maximize sometimes the return, you got to kind of get the exposure and put it out there to the wide, market of potential buyers. Because all of a sudden you have buyers that sometimes weren't really looking at buying a house, and then all of a sudden they see something and it's like, well, I wasn't looking at buying, but this is intriguing. I like this. I want this.
Absolutely. So, sometimes buyers come out of the blue. You'll get introduced to a buyer from somebody else, and you sit down with them in the first meeting, and and they say, my budget is $10 million. You're thinking, okay, I was assuming it'd be 2.5, like almost everyone in San Francisco, but okay, it's 10. And they are, have done well professionally, flown under the radar and have a budget, but they also, like you said, don't want the publicity around it. They don't want, to go to look at the property with other people. So you just never know where that buyer is going to come from.
Exactly. Yeah. Oftentimes it's things that are rare, one of a kind, people flock to. And attracted to. So
Yep.
and we've seen that in the past, just and through luxury real estate. It's just one of kind of opportunity, and people weren't looking for it.
Yep. What I think what we've also seen is a lot of people now, because they spend more time at home, are willing to do the work. So I cannot think of a buyer we've worked with who hasn't done something to the property before they moved in. Sometimes it's as small as painting. Sometimes they got the whole place, even if they want to make it their own. So if you have the location and the space and you're not having to move walls, I think buyers are really willing now and want to go in and really personalize at all price points. From, whereas I remember when I bought my first place, you sort of got every nickel you had just to get into it. And you lived with the ugly Formica countertops, or you lived with the ugly yellow wall, just because that's the resources you had. Now it feels like buyers are not willing to live in an environment that doesn't speak to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Adam, look, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. It's always great to get, again, our clients and our sphere to know about another market. So I will put your contact information at the end if folks have any questions about, because do you want to talk actually really quickly about what area you cover? It's probably helpful to do.
Yeah, so I don't just focus in Minneapolis and the western suburbs, Twin Cities in a whole. So Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we're a huge metro. A lot of people don't know it's just shy of 4 million people here. So cover a lot. So and we also do a lot of lake properties up north too, which is very desirable. I work at all price points and locations in Minnesota. So happy to help anyone that's looking to buy or sell real estate here. So
perfect. Well, Adam, thank you for the time as always. Again, really appreciate getting, first of all, meet you again in person last fall. Thanks for your help when we were out there, and then look forward to working with you in the future.
Same here. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.